Comfort. I'm very excited to have everyone here today. I'm the Director of Programming for the Arkansas Arts and Fashion Forum. We're a nonprofit based out of Springdale, Arkansas, whose mission is to help encourage the fashion conversation in Northwest Arkansas and expand our fashion community through events such as this one, where we have educational talks and panels featuring guests who are experts in the industry. We also support designers in shows like Northwest Arkansas Fashion Week, and we recently launched a designer residency program called Emerge. Today, I am joined by Dr. Constance Bailey. She is an assistant professor of English at the University of Arkansas. She also holds a joint appointment in African and African American Studies. Her research interests include African American folklore, American comedy and humor, and Black speculative fiction. Her article, Signifying Sistas, Black Women's Humor and Intersectional Poetics, is currently under consideration. When she is not attending to her 3 wonderful children, she is hard at work on her first manuscript, The Predicament of Crossing, the Black Collegian and Popular Culture. Tonight we're also joined by Korto Momolu. Inspired by her African roots, Liberian-born fashion designer and stylist Korto Momolu is stamping her global brand with fashion-forward women's wear, ultimately creating art that celebrates the essence of her rich heritage through the use of traditional and luxury fabrics. A graduate of Académie de Couture Design Institute in Ottawa, Ontario, Korto launched her custom line while working as an independent fashion designer in 2006. Advancing her field experience, she auditioned for and earned a spot in the 5th season of Bravo's TV hit show Project Runway. Throughout the season, her primary signature fuse of color and diversity in style and presentation, in addition to her feisty spirit, resonated with the audience. In the end, it earned her the prize of fan favorite and ultimately a placement of the first runner-up at that season's close. She's been highlighted in the top 5 designers to watch at her debut season of New York Fashion Week in the 2009 season. And she's been featured in many international and national publications, as well as appearing on numerous television shows, including 2 seasons of Project Runway All-Stars. She presently makes her home with her husband and children in Little Rock, Arkansas. Now, most of you are probably here because you've seen Beyonce's Black is King, but in case you haven't, just a little bit of background on it. The Black and King was released this summer, I believe it was July 31st, 2020, as a musical film and visual album directed, written, and executive produced by Beyonce. The film serves as a visual companion to the 2019 album, The Lion King, The Gift. Similar to The Lion King, it tells the story of a young prince who is exiled after the death of his father and undergoes a journey of self-identity guided by the ancestor, childhood love, and his subconscious depicted through another being. We're really excited tonight to have Dr. Bailey and Korto here to discuss the themes present in this film through the music, production, and of course through the fashion. So in just a moment, I'm going to go ahead and let them get started and open the floor for them. But if they say something that particularly resonates with you, please chat your questions over to me, or if you're watching on Facebook Live, you can leave a comment there. For those who are on Zoom, I'm the host, Rachel Woody-Pumford, so you'll just privately message them to me, and then at the end, I'll ask the questions to our guests. So we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Wow, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Awesome. I'm super intimidated by that introduction. I think I sound much better, but still, like, I pale in comparison to Korto's accomplishments. But thank you for that gracious introduction. So, as Rachel pointed out, like, we really want to have a conversation or a dialogue tonight about the visual album, but just the academic in me, like, I prepared slides, and it's only like 4 or 5 of them. They're not super long, but it's mostly to help me organize my thoughts, more so than anything. And so, and I think that will also help as a segue into Korto's conversation and then the subsequent conversations, because initially we wanted to just talk about 2 videos, but then everything was so visually stunning. They're so intertextual. Everything speaks to, like, a lot of the symbolism you'll see over and over again. So I was like, no, let's talk about these other things. So that's why the slides are kind of truncated, but mostly to help organize my thoughts. So I'm going to do a screen share, and I think I have figured this out. I've been teaching with Zoom this semester, so you would think 7 or 8 weeks in, I know how to do this, but if for some reason we don't see it, okay, can we see it? Do we see it? All right.
Yeah.
And notice I'm along the Nile River because I don't want you all to see my house. But Beyonce, Water, right? There's a song on the album that that Korto will talk about in a little bit. But that image is pervasive throughout the album, and it's super important, right? Not only is the Nile, credited with being like the cradle of civilization, but it's also associated with the water deity Oshun or Osun. She's sometimes referred to, and so we will see numerous images of her throughout the visual album. And so hopefully we'll get a chance to talk a little bit about that. So just briefly, what in theory, now this is all theoretical, but what I would be doing is providing a brief narrative arc of Black is King, just in case some of you may have seen some of the videos on YouTube, or heaven forbid, if you haven't seen the whole visual album, you gotta borrow somebody's Disney Plus login or something. Like, you have to see it. It's visually stunning. But I just want to kind of briefly, just like 2 seconds, talk about the narrative arc. In theory, we would talk about some of the terms and textual analysis of those two, but probably not, because again, it's going to be a dialogue, so we'll go back and forth. And again, the interpretation of symbols, that's going to be ongoing as well. So this is really, like, in theory, what we would be doing, right? But just briefly, before I even go into this kind of little overview of Mood Forever, which the talk is kind of extracted from that song. The Black is King visual album, basically Beyonce has cobbled together a number of music videos, which essentially tell the story of an African prince who's been exiled from his kingdom after the death of his father. And if that storyline sounds familiar to you, it should, right? That's essentially the storyline from the animated film The Lion King, and of course the live action film from 2019, but also Hamlet, right? Because the original Lion King borrows that storyline from Shakespeare. So what Beyonce does then is she essentially has this auditory and visual experience where we have a young African prince, and we see these, it's very episodic, right? We see different parts of his life. And so in Mood Forever, it's very interesting because the prince kind of sees himself as an adult, right? So we see these images of Jay-Z and Beyonce, which we're made to believe are the prince and Nala, right? And so it pays homage to Coming to America in the opening scenes and numerous images throughout the video. So you can hear like the music from Coming to America, and some of the scenes are almost direct parallels to Coming to America. One of the critiques of Mood Forever in particular, and the visual album as a whole, has been a little bit of like a nod to conspicuous consumption, right? Because there's this display of opulence and wealth, right? And some of those criticisms are valid, but having said that, Mood Forever and the entire album is really about regality and royalty. And the best way to show that is this display of wealth, right? And so we see cowrie shells in Mood Forever, which were used as a currency in parts of Africa. And so and again, we see Jay-Z rapping about, being a king, Beyonce talking about being a queen. And so we see these lines where she says, "I'm so unbothered. She's raising daughters, sons of empires." And so again, this kind of repetition of like, this is about regality, this is about royalty, so on and so forth. She then goes on to say, "I'm the Nala," i.e. Nala, the character from The Lion King. She then says, "Sister of Naruba, Osun, Queen Sheba. I'm the mother, Ankh on my gold chain, ice on my whole chain. I be like soul food, I am a whole mood," right? And so that is the title of this talk. So I want us to just sit with that for a second and think about, what does that mean, right? So some of the references, we've got, the Queen of Sheba, but particularly this idea of Osun and Oshun, we see throughout the visual album. My yellow glasses are a nod to Oshun, because yellow is a color that's associated with Osun. But she's she's a water deity in the Yoruba pantheon, and she is associated with fertility, sensuality, love, purity, all of these things. And so when we see this layering of meaning combined with numerous images of Beyonce in yellow throughout the film, then that goddess is being invoked. And some of you will also remember her Grammy performance from a few years ago where she was pregnant and the gold headdress, and she was literally kind of channeling Oshun. It was super, super powerful. So at any rate, we just skipped. But to go back to a whole mood, right? So Beyonce says, right, I am a whole mood. And I thought, like, what does that mean? So I went to Urban Dictionary. I don't like the Urban Dictionary definition. I actually like the literal definition, right? So I thought we'd just look at like a mood, right? A state or quality of feeling at a particular time. 2, a distinctive emotional quality or character. 3, a prevailing emotional tone or general attitude. 4, a frame of mind, disposed or receptive as to some activity or thing. So to be disposed to doing something. And then lastly, the one that doesn't really work, a state of sullenness, gloom, or bad temper, right? So 4 out of 5 of those, I don't know, you guys, what is going on with my thing, but 4 out of 5 of those really work in terms of like Beyonce saying, I am a whole mood, right? So the way that I think about that, particularly when she says, I am like soul food, I am a whole mood, right? This idea that, I keep pausing you guys to let people in, but this idea that, I'm enough, I'm sustaining, like Black women, Beyonce as sort of representative. Now we know, of course, Beyonce is super fabulous, wealthy, beautiful, all of these things that those of us average Black women may not be, but the idea that Black women are enough, I think is something that this idea of being like a whole mood to me is one of the ways that I like to read that statement, right? And so I just wanted us to think about that because it's we took that as the title for the talk, right? This idea of Beyonce and by extension, Black women being a whole mood, right? And what that means. So I said all that to say, and this is kind of the last little still I'll show because like I said, I want us to go kind of back and forth. But in the film, right before we see the video from My Power, we see the lionesses who are we see these images of these strong Black women dressed in their like, feline attire. And then it immediately goes into this video where we see stunning Black girls and Black women, including Beyonce's daughter, Blue Ivy, and we see, of course, Solange, who we all know and love, right? And for me, the way that I read that is that Beyonce is suggesting that, one, there's this intertextual conversation about Simba, right? And the lionesses and these Black women who are backing him up, that's a source of his strength and power. But for her, right, as a Black woman, that a large source of her strength and power is family. So that's the way I like to read it. I think we can see that in other places. We see her mom, we see Kelly, who's a part of her extended family, and we see these images throughout the film. But what I thought we would do, just for maybe like a minute of it, because I want us to have time to talk about some of the other ones, where did it go? Is to maybe watch the first minute of My Power just to see some of that powerful imagery, and then I'll shut up and let Kato take over. Okay, so I want to stop there just because I could watch that video 5,000 times and keep watching it. But one of the reasons that I wanted to just show that as a kind of stopping point is because one of the things that I think that My Power does so wonderfully is connect the African diaspora, because she has South African hip hop artists. She has Tierra Whack, who's the funny story about Tierra Whack is I was watching Black is King for like the second or third time thinking about this talk, and my 15-year-old son came in and is like, is that Tierra Whack? And I was like, oh, well, how do you know? And he was like, oh, she was on the freshman class of XXL, like some hip hop magazine that I used to keep up with like 20 years ago and that I don't keep up with anymore. He's like, oh, that's pretty cool. And he's like, well, I don't listen to her music because of course he's 15 and he has to be like, it would be too cool. Like he couldn't listen to something that his mom listened to. He's like, but that's pretty cool that she's on Beyonce's song. So I thought, well, not only is Beyonce connecting the diaspora, but she's also doing this wonderful intergenerational connection through this music and through these stunning visuals. So I was super, super excited about that random comment he made, because I was like, wow, that's pretty dope, right? That, you know, that Beyonce's pulling together not just all these beautiful, gorgeous people, but these super talented younger generations of musicians that she's bringing along with her. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox now and turn it over to Korto.
Well, no, I want to just chime into, I'm going to start kind of where you ended. I was thinking the same thing watching it. It's not just about the music and the musicians and the designers, it's everything. There's inclusion. I mean, if there was a face for inclusion, it would be Black is King. And it's almost saying that everybody has a chance. And this is just one album. So as she moves further through, I think she's going to continue to pull in so many people. Like just in this body of work, you have, you know, Miguel, you have Balmain, but then I was just mentioning earlier, a friend of mine, Benny Etienne, you know, my homeboy from Dallas, you know, who's been doing design forever, just got on Project Runway. His jacket got pulled for this. So it's saying that you can be everything you want to be. So you can be in the room with kings and queens, but you got to believe it. And I'm here to show it to you. And I'm going to prove that this platform isn't just for me. I'm going to pull as many people through the door as I can before my time is up. So with the artists from America all the way to the Zulu Nation, she's bringing in these people and she's just saying that what we all love is one thing that brought us together in this project, which is music. Next thing we have fashion, which is those things come in hand in hand with Beyonce. They don't ever separate. And I think she's making it her legacy to merge those two things. So for me as a designer, it just says, you know, one day I'm going to be on this, I'm going to be here. You know, it gives me hope that as a fashion student at FIT or Parsons or wherever you're going, I have one of my mentees on here, you know, her work can be on here one day. She can be a part of this team and it gives hope. And I think that's what she's putting out there now, giving hope in so many ways. At the end of the day, Beyonce feels like it's her mission, not just to be an artist, but to be a voice. And I love one of her songs from back where she said, you know, when I leave this earth, I want them to know that I was here. Even if you're not a part of the Beehive, if you don't love her, you don't think she can sing. I mean, she has so much criticism, right, Constance? You can't deny the fact that the girl is talented and she has something to say and she's saying it. And I love in this song, In My Power, I actually used this for my last collection I showed last year at Fashion Week before the world shut down, as my models came out for my finale. And it was this song because I wanted people to understand that I own my power. You don't own it. And she's not saying you can't take my power. She's saying they'll never take my power. So she's talking to multiple people, multiple instances. So it might be a certain group of people. It might be her haters. It might be the people that doubt her. It might be people that wake up every morning and go to her page and criticize because they feel like they can. So it's multiple people. So everything in this entire body of work is intentional. And I love that she doesn't just do stuff. She doesn't go on her social media and just ran off all day. If she posts something, it's intentional. She says something, it's intentional. There's a picture that's leaked with her and her husband. There's a meaning behind it. And it's just not thrown out there to just say, well, I'm doing it because I'm Beyonce. She realizes the power of her celebrity. And I appreciate the fact as a Black woman that she takes it serious enough to know that when she represents her womanhood, that she's not just representing herself, it's all of us. So she takes time and pride in that. And I can appreciate that as a Black woman. So that was for my power. I love all the Zulu influences in there, the dancers and just the color red. There's so much red. And, you know, with red, red is like a symbolism of war. It's fighting. It's all of that. It's anguish. And when you see red, you know, when people say, I see red, you know, you're enraged, you know, and sometimes, you know, you can't really show or say what you want to. So I think putting all that color in there and that fire is just like, this is a time of war. We're at war right now. And I don't know if anybody realizes this, there's a war going on, you know, and in different aspects of our lives. And it's time to fight. There's a war against Black women. There's a war against Black people. There's a war against women in general. There's a war against our, you know, I could go on forever on the topic what the war is against, but I think putting all this in there and just saying, you'll never take my power, I can just sit here and list a whole bunch of things that I can refer to with just the current state of our nation, the current state of our world right now. So I think it's important that she said it, but she didn't really have to break it down. It's in there. And when you look at all the creativity that came together, all the crowns, you know, all these women on here are wearing crowns. They might not be crowns with jewels on them, but they're crowns nonetheless, just like my head wrap right now. And it's just saying, you know, hold your head up high. And I can appreciate that. So that was my power. Love it. What was our next one we're gonna go to? Did you have another one in there that you did, Constance, or?
No, I think we were going to talk about water, and we probably could have, we probably could have slid it in there when we were talking about Oshun or Osun, but I think that was definitely one we wanted to talk about, since water imagery is so pervasive throughout the visual album.
Yes, exactly. I mean, where I'm from in Liberia, usually women who are affiliated with water, they're called mami watas. And they're women who are of the water. They're, in the sense, what you guys may know as mermaids, you know, and there's a whole mythical theology around who they are. And I mean, sometimes people growing up, people would pray for people I know and say, you know, you're a mami wata, you're from the water. You know, and those women always had certain things affiliated with them. Maybe they would never be able to carry children, or maybe never be able to keep a husband because they were from the water, like their husbands had to be of the water. So sometimes people do believe in like those other lives from our ancestors. And I feel like it's so prevalent in this whole body of work and all the images that she has of water. But water to me is always related to strength. And the power of water. You know, nothing controls water. Water does what it wants to do. So those are some of the things when I'm seeing all this water and she coming out of it and having such strength, it's the same, going back to the same thing. I control me. No one can control water. I don't care how we try. Water is destructive. You know, it can be beautiful and it can be revengeful at the same time. So if you're not careful with water, it can be just like this, the difference between life and death. So it's, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I like that you know, that last statement where you said like this idea of like life and death, right? It can be destructive, but it can also be redemptive. And I think one of the wonderful things that we see is a lot of pairing and juxtaposing and contrasting of images. So even at the end of like Mood Forever, I think there's the white and black chessboard. So we see this duality, and water is working similarly, right? Because usually like in literature or other text, and this is a kind of text, right, we will see water being regenerative. We'll associate it with birth and rebirth. And we even see literally like, you know, because there's this parallel to the biblical narrative. So we see the baby in the river. Mm-hmm. And so we see it being associated with birth, but we also know that like flooding and destruction, and even in our own real lives, right? The connotation of that. And it also makes me think about the way in which she uses water. And I kind of go back to Lemonade, right? We see it being generative, but we also then see on I think it was the Formation video where we see the flooding and devastation in New Orleans, and we know, you know, invoking her own personal connection to Louisiana, which that's one of the things I also think that, you know, while Lemonade invokes so much of Beyonce's personal history and narrative into it, like we saw that being infused into that stunning visual album, this one I think diminishes it just a little in favor of this larger, like her place within the diaspora, right? You know, so we see her as an African American woman, but we also see the importance of all of these other different ways to be Black and different types of Black identity that we see through the fashion and the music, and again, and we see like water in many of those places. So I think that's great that you mentioned that contrast.
It's huge. And then even like in the words, you know, can I drink from your water? It's almost like, can I draw off your strength? You know, that's her strength. That's kind of how I took it. Growing up, those images of like the hareo dress that she has from Namibia with the women in their headdress that she recreated for her own look. And I like how a lot of the traditional things, she didn't just wear them as is, she recreated them and they were inspired by. And I think that showed respect for a lot of the cultures that she's paying homage to, because sometimes people take that stuff very personal. So kudos to her for at least, you know, paying homage to it and not using it in a way where it would be disrespected, you know, feel like it was a sign of disrespect. But just going to the water every morning, when I was little, going to visit my grandparents, that's the first thing you did when you woke up. You would take a calabash, you put it on your head or a bucket, and you go to the water and you would draw water. You know, that's how you start your day. That's how we all start our day here in the US, you know, everywhere around the world. You started with water, you're brushing your teeth, you're washing your face, you're taking a shower, you're refreshing. This element is, you know, covering your body, and it's the same thing. But, you know, there, you know, you're putting it on your head and you're carrying it, and sometimes weighing it with no hands and balancing it. And for somebody to say, you know, can I drink from it? That's a strength, you know? Can I draw from your strength? And for a man saying it to a woman is almost like that vulnerability to me. Like, you know, everybody needs a source of strength, and we're not all everything that we think we are or want to be. We all want to be 100% strong and courageous, but it's okay. It's almost like it's saying it's okay to draw from your woman, the woman that you're seeing in these images, and vice versa. So that was kind of what I kind of took from that. The dress, though, I love, like I said, how she took a lot of the traditional pieces and kind of inspired by it, but then just the color and the flow, even like the drape she had, like with the fuchsias and the blues, it was almost like they were imitating the flow of water and the waves, and just, it was really serene to me, like how the draping was. I love to drape, so seeing it was a calming spirit almost. There wasn't a lot of this going on in this particular video, but when you saw the shots, they were bold, and they were very visible. And I loved the fact that it was very colorful, kind of like the fish you see in the ocean and the different colors that you see when you can go and see it in the clear waters in the islands. All the different colors that spark is almost like she was trying to replicate that, but in human form. At least that's kind of how I took from it. But definitely, this is one of my favorite songs. I actually used this song as well in my collection when my very last look came out, because I thought it was important. As men and women in relationships, we have to draw from each other. We have to take from each other. We need each other. We can't stand alone. And I think this entire virtual album was basically in a homage to her son, to Sir, but to men and kings. But without a woman, none of that could happen. So, which will take me into Brown Skin Girl, which I felt was an amazing tribute to brown skinned women. And I love the fact that she said brown skinned girl. She didn't say black girl. So anyone of color that fits in that form can understand it. This was a really emotional song for me. Like when I hear it sometimes, I do just bust out crying, because there's so many words in there that resonate directly with me growing up. Being dark skinned, having this big nose that my daddy gave me, these thick lips that I get from my grandfather, my dark skin, my big butt, you know, all of that. Those are things I got teased about in school. You know, I was big nose Kato or big butt Kato. And here we are in an age where all the things people teased me about, people are purchasing now. You know, all the things that were horrible about me or ugly about me, people are now buying, you know, and going to their nearest surgeons to have. So it's not validation to me. It's almost like this is her way of just saying, you know what, you're beautiful the way you are. And even though I'm 45, you know, I still remember those things. Luckily for me, you know, I always had this great upbringing to kind of make me strong enough to get through it. But my favorite line from this song was, the same skin that was broken be the same skin taking over. And I just think about myself, shy little Kato who never spoke, but got teased and bullied, with this same dark skin and this big butt and this big nose, but I'm living out my dream now. So yeah, that same skin that they tried to break and at some point was broken. I didn't want this nose. You know, I didn't care if it was my daddy's nose. I just wanted a pointier one. I wanted to look like what society said was beautiful. So in this video, before the video even came out, really the song, and just saying, I think about me talking to my daughter or my son and just saying, you know, when no matter what anyone tells you, what mama says, that's it, period. You're beautiful. When you walk into the room, people notice you. They might act like they don't. It might, pretend like your vision is not worthy of being seen, but it is. And you have to believe that in here. And on those days where it gets tough and society says you're not beautiful, those are the things, those affirmations that we have to put into our little girls and little boys to let them know that they are worthy. I love the fact too that there was like a debutante ball going on. So it was almost like a hip hop version to like, let me reintroduce myself. I kind of like that. That's kind of what I took from that, like a coming out party again. We always say like the Black woman is the most abused woman in America. We stand by so much and we get disregarded so much. But I think this was just saying, we want to tell you what we are. We're resilient. We're still standing and we're still fighting. And no matter how many times we get broken down, we still get back up because we can't do anything but. We have no choices but to get back up and stand tall and stand strong because we have daughters that we're bringing, like she's saying, I'm raising daughters. Your daughters can't see you broken down. They have to see you standing up. And so do your sons. But without us, there can't be any sons and kings. So it was a great tribute. I get emotional every time the song comes on, but I thought it was a beautiful display of a variety of skin tones, from albino all the way to the Sudanese woman. And I thought it was important for me to see all of that. Even though I know all those things are beautiful, it was important to see it in a body of work.
Yeah, and if I could chime in right there, one of the things I think that one of the reasons I love Brown Skin Girl, other than the fact that I have daughters and nieces, and I tear up too, but I also tear up at everything, to be fair. But I mean, one of the things I think that the song to me kind of subtly speaks to is those unfair accusations, I think, but those accusations early in Beyonce's career, where there were these conversations about colorism, and there was, she had the cover of either like Marie Claire or Vogue or something like that, and the lighting oftentimes and she's a fairly fair-skinned Black woman, but in some cases she would be extremely light. And for me, this is Beyonce's way of saying, I love my children, I love my sisters, my friends, and all of the diversity of those complexions. And and her, especially her later body of work, right? The early Destiny's Child stuff was like kind of teeny bopperish, it is what it is. But she's been constantly like affirming her identity, the importance of family, the importance of generational wealth, which I do think, again, sometimes, critics will say, she and her husband kind of espouse these, virtues that are, that are a subject for another conversation, not about fashion today. But she has, like, her artistry has evolved, and it continually showcases how important is her, not just her Blackness, but her specific identity, her Southern roots, her connection to HBCU, saying as a kid she used to go to Prairie View, so we had the Homecoming, stunning, documentary. So I just think this is her way of saying, to your earlier point, right? I don't have to specifically get on Twitter. She's not gonna, the beehive will come for people on Twitter. Like, she's not gonna do that. She doesn't have to address those criticisms. Like, her fans will do that for her, but she can craft songs and videos that, speak to the diversity of color within the Black community, and how all of them are equally beautiful. So I think, for me, this is kind of her way to do that.
Yeah, I love it. And I love the line, "It's in my power," back to that, but it's referred to me as a goddess. I'm tired of being modest, and she's come out a lot of times and just like, bow down. Like, look, I'm tired of just tiptoeing. Yes, I am the queen and you are, and that's okay. She has worked hard for her position. So I just think we have to get to the point where you just have to say what it is. Who else is doing this right now? We have a lot of artists right now that the songs that they're bringing out, I wouldn't dare play it on my radio for my kids or even bop my head to it, because I don't feel like it's a reflection of who I am as a person or as a woman, or my level of respect I have for myself. So for her to come out with a body of work like this that has something for everybody. You know, like Bigger is one of my other favorite songs that we're not really getting on, but just the wording in there, you know, if you feel insignificant, you know, you better think again. You know, rewriting your history, like they've already written what they said your history is, but really you can get a pen and rewrite it. You have that power. You know, no one can tell you who you are or where you're going to be. You have that power to claim who you are and who you're going to be and what you want to be and how you want people to see you. And you know, I've seen a lot of videos of her talking about her family. You know, we have seen a lot of children who come into this industry and, you know, we see it on TMZ. She's never been on TMZ, you know, with wilding out and just losing control and having too much money and just living, you know, if her only fault is living lavishly and showing it sometimes, I'll take it, you know. She worked for that money. So yeah, if she has 3 Rolls Royces, she's worked for it. And if that's what she wants to use her money to buy, that's her money, you know. But at the same time, she's also putting people through school, and she's doing so much outside of singing and dancing that I think we have to give the woman credit for what she's adding to our society, musically, with fashion and everything. But let's go back to fashion with this. I love the Tongoro Studios. The dresses, those are actually, that's one of my favorite designers. The line, just the dresses that they create, just flowy. And when you look at their collections, like they're very regal. And just, I love that she took the time to navigate through African designers, as well as European designers, American designers. But I love the careful thought behind everybody that was chosen. You know, there was a lot in there, a lot of designers and a lot of faces and a lot of replicas. But I love the fact that she took the time to say, these designers who are on the continent are doing it big too. And the ones in diaspora, the ones in Europe, the ones that everybody knows, and some of the ones that nobody knows. I love the fact that there was inclusion in all of that. Made me happy as a designer, as an artist, to see it. And it was very inspiring. Like, you can watch this Black is King like 25 times and you'll still miss something. You know, like, I'm sure you've seen it like a million times, Constant. It's like you miss so many things. And I was watching one day and my son was in there. He's like, "Whoa, rewind, mama, rewind." Like, we kept rewinding My Power. That's his favorite video. And he'd miss something and he'd go back and then he'd do a dance and then he'd come back. And then it was just like everything was just catching his eye. And there's one reference to, I think there's clips in a lot of the videos that she has, but the fringe. You know, growing up, we used to have these dancers that would come to my grandfather's village, and that's what they look like. They look like they were made out of like straw or just a bunch of fringe, and they would dance and it looked like they didn't even have like a spinal cord. It was like really crazy, but we would call them devils. And the devils would come and they would perform and they would speak in this language and somebody would interpret it. But there were some of them that would come to the village where, as a woman, you weren't even allowed to see them or speak, because apparently it would take your voice or take your vision. And my parents really took that stuff seriously. Like, we'd be hiding in closets with our mouth, hands over our mouth. So it was kind of interesting to see like a lot of the visuals reflecting this. A lot of this stuff is from Senegal and Cameroon, South Africa, but it's mostly West Africa, Nigeria, Liberia, where I'm from, where you would see these dancers, these tribal dancers, and all the tribal moves that they were doing in most of the videos. So that was interesting to just see how she took those images and made it into fashion. So.
Perfect. If you ladies are ready, I can start opening it up to questions.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there might have been one other thing that we were going to talk about, but I didn't have any explicit or specific comments.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think we could do Q&A whenever you're ready.
Sure. So again, just a reminder for anyone who might have joined late, if you wouldn't mind chatting the questions to me, Rachel Woody-Pumford, I'm the host on the Zoom call. That way I can read them over to our guests. I had one question first, because Korto was talking about that fringe dress, and here I can share my screen.
The blue one?
The blue one.
Yes.
So we talked earlier about yellow and red as colors that were symbolic, but something that I saw while looking back through is the significant use of the color blue. So this is from Already.
Yeah.
And so in just that music video, blue is the impact color that you see over and over.
Yeah.
And
I love the fact that she always throws love to her daughter, Blue.
Yes.
And we might just think, oh, it's just body paint. But like I said with Beyonce, it's always intentional. Nothing is ever done just, oh, let's just put this on, it'll be okay. Even these bodysuits here they're wearing with the moon on it, you know, you're the sun, I'm the moon. The references to the Bantu knots in her hair, the cowrie shells, the display of wealth. But then cowrie shells can also be a reference to witchcraft as well, depending on where you're from.
Mm-hmm. Well, it also relates back to what you two were talking about earlier with the use of crowns. Because even in, just because I have already pulled up, she has her hair styled in various crown styles, or she has the gele, or this chainmail crown that's very explicitly a crown. And so I wanted to see if
that's a reference to her being a queen. I mean, she's a queen in all forms. And I love the fact that she never moves away from that or is unapologetic about it.
Well, and also, like you said, she's also about uplifting people.
Yeah.
So the hairstylist she worked with, I've got their name handy, Neil Farina. He worked with the best Black hairstylist that he could find to make over 40 wigs that were inspired by different cultures. So that way they weren't, like you said, directly stealing from cultures, but were inspired by and building on.
Well, if Neil could get me some of those beaded ones, like I would want that, like, because it kind of reminds me of my necklace I have on. I would love like one in every color beaded. So I actually went on the internet looking for it after I saw the video. I just would never comb my hair. I just wear a beaded wig.
I mean, it'd stand out. It'd be fancy. It's like, it might be a lot for Little Rock, but like, Beyonce can do it.
I mean, they're used to me being a little bit much. But hey, somebody has to shake things up a bit. I'll do it. I'm sure my friend Star will too. We'll both wear them together. Oh my goodness.
Rachel, I think you have a comment or question. And we have at least one member of the Beehive, I think, also in the chat. I don't know if that's what that's invoking, but
yeah. So the question in the comments was, can you please discuss the fashion and historic references in the pool scene and the sink swimmers in the mood forever? And so that way people know what we talk about. I've got those that I can pull up as well from the.
Oh, so I know nothing about fashion, to be clear, but one thing I would say, but if we have the stills, that'd be great. When I was thinking about, and also just like researching different interpretations of the pool scene, you had a couple, there were some critics who, kind of read it as an extension of the almost kind of burlesque scene from the original animated film where I Just Can't Wait to Be King. So there are some like visual parallels between the way that the Jamaican swimmers looked and the way that they were, the kind of dance number that the animals were doing, and I Just Can't Wait to Be King. So I thought that was kind of an interesting, possibility. There was also, and I'm gonna forget the swimmer's name, but there was also like it alludes to synchronized swimming, routines created by XYZ's person's name, whom I can't remember right now. So there was that, but I wonder about the pink and the color, and I don't know a lot about the fashion aspect of why the pink and orange in the pool, with the pool scene. So I'd be really interested in. Korto, did you have any insights into those specific colors with the pool scene?
Not so much for the colors, but just growing up and just being Liberian, when we have big events, it's known that we would have specific colors. Like for instance, my family might wear this print. And that's how you will recognize who we are. Because I noticed like some of the women are all wearing this look and it's the exact same look. The men are wearing this, the swimmers are wearing this. And it's not to say, well, we're separate, but maybe if we're at a reunion, you want to know who's who. And that just shows this is our family tree and this is yours. And these are the elders and these are my sisters. So for family events, we'll actually have different cloths and be like, these people are going to wear this lace and everybody will get that lace and either make the same look or different looks from it, and vice versa. But it would all come together as one, like how it looks like as one unique family right here. It all kind of blend in together and they'll all coincide with each other. So
wow, that's pretty amazing. One thing I would say, I don't think that there was maybe any intentionality at all, but that's me as like a cultural critic. One of the things that I read into it that I think it has nothing to do with color, but I love when I see Black people in pools, because one of the things that I think gets lost in terms of when we talk about like social justice and even like desegregation is like, historically, like there are a lot of Black people, myself included, who can't swim. And I grew up in an era where there, pools had been desegregated, but there was usually one Black pool in town when I was a kid, right? And so, and when we think about like civil rights movements, even like when I moved here from the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And so a lot of that history is about desegregating the beaches, right? And those spaces that like Black people, we're water is inherent to many cultures for Indigenous and Black people. So this idea that in the United States, we've been barred from spaces, it's like, you can't be, it's almost a strange incongruity, right? Where it's like, you're barred from spaces where Black people have like inherently been like near the water. But so I love to see Black people in pools and water, because it's like, yes, Black people can and do swim. This one doesn't, but many do, right? And should, right? And so it's like, I'm gonna claim this identity of, beautiful, gorgeous Black women swimming, so that people like myself, maybe I'll put it on my 50 before 50 like list. Like I need to learn how to swim.
And she's a great swimmer. Like there's always videos of her jumping in the ocean, her children, and I think that's something that. With her and Jay-Z, they always show that you're not going to put us in a box of the, with we don't do this and we don't do that. We're going to do everything.
Yeah, for sure.
We're whole mood.
Someone mentioned in the comments that they believe it was also filmed or shot at Madam C.J. Walker's house.
I heard that rumor. I haven't been able to verify it. I've been reading different stuff. But I did hear that. I don't know if it's true or not. I wonder.
Yeah.
And I know my Liberian brother bought the house. Former owner of Shea Moisture, so I'll look that up.
Yeah, we can definitely do some follow-up comments, in terms of some of these things that we don't know.
And another comment also mentioned that they believe the pink tied into the pink flamingos from the movie Flying Kings, like you said, the synchronized swimming scene.
Yeah, Rich Lou Dennis. Thank you, Sierra. Yeah,
Sierra's on it today. You have lots of.
She's from the Hive now. She's from the Beehive now. He purchased it, so it'd be interesting to see if that is. Like I said, nothing is done just to be done. So that house, there's a meaning behind that house. All of that, there's this meaning behind it. And the more you watch Black is King, there's so many things in there that if you really break it down, like this is like a 1 month series.
Oh yeah, we could do 5 more of these and still not.
Yeah, and still not.
You probably do an hour per song, right? Got a whole.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Another question from the feed is regarding wealth. Is there any significant with the patterns and colors that were used throughout the film?
Yeah, I think we talked about some. We talked about yellow, for instance, being associated with Oshun, the Yoruba water, Orisha, red, which Korto pointed out, is intensity, anger sometimes, fire, passion, but also it's interesting because I think, and I suspect just like Korto pointed out about different families, I think that if I had to guess, and I don't know this to be true, like in my research, I I'll write about specific Nigerian writers and some of their tribal groups, for instance. So I don't know a lot about, African and African Americans are diverse. We're not monolithic. But if I had to guess, right, that certain colors are probably associated with certain either tribal groups or certain some colors are probably more valued or more whatever in certain groups or certain parts of Africa, if I had to guess, because in some ways, we see her working with different, artists from across the country, right? She's a South African artist. She also works with like Ethiopian, right? Like she's, so, diverse in terms of her musical and fashion, connections that it's hard to say. One thing I will say in terms of water imagery, when we think about blue, although this Nile behind me and the Nile behind Beyonce is kind of brown or murky. One thing I will say about like water is that one thing we didn't say is like water is associated with, we talked about regeneration, birth, destructive potential. Water is also a liminal space, which is just like the state of being betwixt and between. So when we think about the Middle Passage, that is a space, literally between Africa and the Americas. And so when you are in utero, you are in this literal space where you're between, life and death, and you're couched in water. And so I think a lot of the betweenness, especially with this intergenerational conversation that she's having, for me, the water is stereotypically blue, right? And so water, and then the blue then connotes life and water and all of this potential, this regenerative potential of being, both redemptive, both liberatory, and potentially also deadly. So it's an interesting sort of thing. And I also read something about the gullah and the potential for a haint blue, like the blue man. The Gullah, of course, are people on the Sea Islands off the coast of South Carolina and Georgia. And I do a little bit with Gullah foodways. I hadn't heard prior to my reading a lot about haint blue in Gullah, but apparently that is a thing. It's a color used, I think, to like ward off evil spirits, supposedly. So. But that's something we should look more into too. But for sure, lots of regal colors, lots of yellows, lots of passion and intensity with the reds. I was like, surprised not to see as much purple, which is a color we typically associate with like royalty.
Yeah, but she had a lot of royal blue,
mm-hmm.
which traditionally, like when my mom turned 60, that was her color. Same with my dad. That was almost like is warding off the bad spirits to a sense, the going into their 60s. It was almost like it was covering them with this shield for health, for wealth. And we believe in a lot of that. So most 60-year-old African people, you'll see that'll be like their main color when they turn 60s, going into their senior living life.
I need to remember that then, blue.
Yeah, royal, yeah.
Royal, yes.
Yeah.
We've got a question that might be our final question because we're coming close to the end, that says, can you please talk to the symbolism of the hair in Black is King? Specifically, Beyonce's hair tends to be the longest of any person in any given shot. I actually conveniently have one from a shot.
The one from the very end?
Yes, so there's one where her hair is particularly long.
Yeah.
But even like in the fringe dress, her hair comes down to below, or when she's wearing the red suit, her hair is the longest.
Yeah. And most traditionally, if you go to most villages, no one's going to get haircuts and hairstyles. Your hair is your wealth to a certain degree, is your strength, Even in the Bible, hair is strength. And when you cut it, it's like it takes away your strength. Most dreadlocks, people, dreads in Jamaica, when they're growing their dreads, they just grow them, and they just grow for as long as they can grow. I think with her is just this whole body of work was just saying strength, There's so much strength in here. There's so much, I am woman, I am female, I am everything, I am a mood. She's showing her resilience and she's showing her shield. And a lot of times when you see Beyonce, what's the first thing most people talk about is her hair. So it's almost like she's feeding into the frenzy, but she's also making a statement with it. This is my strength. When she talks in Brown Skin Girl, I love everything about you from your nappy curls. It's just one more thing. It's just hair. But there's so much strength in that hair. There's so much, when we wake up in the morning, the first thing we try to put together is our hair. If our hair isn't right, we almost get into a whole different mood because we're having a bad hair day. That's where the term came from. Hair is such a powerful thing. And look how powerful it is in this photo. It's like it's never ending. It's a never ending issue. It'll never go away. And as women, it will always be a topic for us. So
yeah, and the other thing, yeah, I do think, just to piggyback off Korto's point, is that, strength and resilience, there are a lot of biblical parallels. So she draws on some biblical mythology and imagery throughout the video. So I think this idea of like a woman's hair being her crown and glory, or Samson's hair being his strength, also thinking about Rastafarianism and growing your hair and the importance of that in various religious traditions. So I really love the idea of hair as resilience and strength. But I also think it's to go back to this idea of identity politics. I think Beyonce's like, I can wear my hair however, me and my kid, because there was this whole, brouhaha and this, fake internet debacle where it's like, why won't she comb Blue Ivy's hair, 3 or 4 years ago? And it's like, Black women, it's like, oh, your hair isn't straight enough, or your hair is too, or it's not, you're not authentic because you don't have a natural. And I think Beyonce with the Bantu knots, she's like, I can wear African style, I can do a Eurocentric style, I can wear, and so we've got like so many hairstyles, it's like I can wear my damn hair however I please because I'm grown. And to cut those points, I worked hard for my stuff. Like I can do whatever I want. So to me, it goes back to mood forever. Like I am a whole mood. I'm a boss. I can do whatever I want with and yeah, and you're just gonna deal with it,
right?
You don't like it or you not, and I don't have time for it. I let the beehive deal with you with y'all peons because I'm not gonna engage. So yeah.
Well, perfect. And Sierra made a comment that the hair is also a reference to ancestry for me. All those who have come before her. So, I'll add that in since sounds like she knows more about the beehive than I do. So.
Sierra sounds like a card-carrying member of the beehive.
Thank you so much for joining us, ladies. We really appreciate having you here.
Thank you so much for having us on here. It's great to be included and invited. I hope everybody got something out of it. If you haven't seen it, now go watch it all over again with all the stuff that me and Constance just talked about, and see if you can pick up on some things that maybe we missed, and continue the conversation on Facebook, because it'll be on Facebook Live for a while.
And then we'll also upload the recording to YouTube. I believe Facebook kicked us off for a minute when we streamed part of the video. So it's now in 2 videos. And so the YouTube will cut out that middle recording. And so you can go see my power and jump back in. But thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Constance. Thanks, Rachel.